Welcome to the Plant Cunning Podcast,
where we explore a relationship to plants, other people, and the mysteries of nature.
Coming to you from the high Allegheny Plateau in central New York.
We are your hosts, A.C. Staubel
and Isaac Hill. Okay, so today on the Plant Cunning Podcast, we have Robin Rose Bennett. Robin Rose Bennett is an amazing herbalist, green witch, author, teacher, and she's great. We're going to get to that episode in just a second, but I do just want to say that we are announcing the 2024 Plant Cunning Conference. It's going to be live and in person at our small farm in central New York. It's going to be July 26th through 28th, so save the date. Tickets will be available soon, and we've got a keynote from Pam Montgomery. We've got Zamboni Funk, Seven Song, Rebecca Byer, many other amazing herbalists, astrologers, amazing people, and we're really excited about it. So we'll get a lot more information about that out soon, but save the date, July 26th through 28th. Okay, and also don't forget to rate us on iTunes and Apple Podcasts and all that kind of stuff. Give us 5 stars if you can. Thank you. And follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, wherever we're everywhere, at YouTube. Also, I apologize for the sound quality on our end. I think I had this microphone turned the wrong way. So these things happen sometimes. I apologize. I hope that you enjoy the episode regardless. Here it is. Okay, so today on the Plant Cunning Podcast, we have Robin Rose Bennett. And Robin is a renowned green witch, herbalist, author, teacher, a wonderful speaker, and just a wonderful person in general. So, Robin, how are you today?
Thanks, Isaac. I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy we have snow outside. Even I saw today that the juncos, right, the little white and gray birds that are usually only on the ground, they were up on the top of the seed pods. I always leave my garden like, quote, a mess all winter because I've noted that the birds feed off of those seed stalks of my, weedy garden all winter. So today I've never seen a junco up. And maybe others have, but I only see them on the ground. And today they were on top of I think it was asters. I don't remember for sure really, but it was up on top of that 4 foot high dead, quote, dead stalk.
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool.
It was very great to see. It made me feel so good about my choice to always leave the stalks until the spring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we do that too. Mm-hmm. Apparently it's good for the insects too, the good insects to overwinter in the stalks.
Yep, in the stalks and in those leaves that people spend so much time and energy blowing off of their land.
Yeah. We go and collect those leaves from town where they people post them on the curb and we just load up our trailer.
And there you go. You've got your mulch.
Exactly. Yeah. Really good stuff.
That. Okay. That's creative recycling. I like that.
Yeah. Free.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I live on the edge of 3,000 acres out my backyard, so I never would have to go get leaves. If you ever want to come and get truckloads of leaves, visit, have tea, have a meal, and go away with leaves.
Awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah.
So we have a traditional first question with the Plant Cunning Podcast, and it's how did you come to the plant path?
Yes. Well, one way to answer that is I was looking for answers to health problems. I didn't yet have the slightest notion that plants were teachers and healers and, going to open worlds of joy to me. I was just looking for help for things that medical didn't have any answers for. So that really was my entree. And we could say on another level that all the many incarnations I've had as a herbalist and witch and midwife and all of that were compelling me towards this, though I didn't know it. That's quite possible too. I was already deeply on a spiritual path. So I went kind of from the invisible realm to the let's bring it all into daily life on earth realm, which was one of the greatest things that could have possibly happened for me. And lastly, I would say that unbeknownst to me, my great grandmother, Esther, was in fact a renowned herbalist in Brooklyn. I had no idea about that until I had been an herbalist for over a decade in Manhattan at that time. So, how cool is that? So, she was likely, part of that call in there too. And really, when I made the kind of shift from the strictly, quote unquote, strictly spiritual, emotional healing work I had been doing from a very young age, like a teenager, I saw that there was like a danger in being too kind of up into all the beautiful concepts, like they were real, but nonetheless they, I needed that marriage, right, of the embodiment much more than I even knew at the time.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful for a lot of people. Can be very abstract up in the sky and not grounded in
Yeah.
the
And then
physical.
ultimately, and I know that the plants called me. Right. But I didn't want to just oversimplify and have that be my only answer to you. The plants called me.
Yeah, they usually do.
They they definitely do. Yeah.
So with your grandmother Esther, did you have a relationship with her, or
No, this was my great grandmother.
great grandmother? So you had no idea.
I had no idea. And at some point, I reconnected with a great uncle who
Uh-huh.
was very ill. He was dying. And I was kind of a newbie herbalist.
Hmm.
And I began going to his home, his apartment, and making steams for him and things like
Oh,
that.
cool.
And after a couple of visits, he kind of, picked up the towel and looked up at me. He said, my mother did this.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, you mean, it was already thrilling to me. I said, oh, you mean she like helped the family? He said, oh, no, no. He says, people would line up like down the block to see her. I'm like, what?
Oh
What?
my goodness.
And he said, the other thing he said, this was my great uncle Mac. He said, they called her a Tishamacha in Yiddish. And I said, having almost zero Yiddish, I said,
Uh-huh.
what is a Tishamacha? And he said, it means a mischief maker and back under the towel, right? He had emphysema. So I thought about it, it's like a mischief maker. Well, that really sounds like a euphemism for a witch to me.
Right.
I went home and I said, Mom, why didn't you tell me your grandmother was a witch? She said, I didn't know that.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah. So there you go. How
That's
cool.
so cool.
I know. It thrilled me because I really thought I have kind of a deep knowing of and connection to my spiritual heritages, but
Okay.
I didn't think there was anything in my physical
Mhm.
ancestry that was a part of, this part of my being. So to discover that was like, wow. It was very affirming, I guess. In a simple word, it was quite affirming.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 So the spiritual path for you is first, I guess.
It was
And
yes.
I'm always interested in what people's spiritual backgrounds are and what their paths are. So what was your spiritual path before you got into herbalism?
Well, I was very fortunate to meet two very brilliant explorers of spirit and human nature, and they started their own course, and it really was focused on like all right, let me do the shortened version. They started with things like Sylvan mind control, which is today would be like The Secret, attracting what you want by thinking, positive and visualizing, right? It was all that. But they were very, very interesting people. And they were like, but when you do everything right and you don't manifest what you want, what's going on? And so that led them to this thing that they created, which was really an exploration of your shadow, right? And it was really about becoming whole, or let me put it differently, about realizing you're already whole, which is a very key tenet of my own healing path with people, is you're already whole. And so much of our pain and suffering comes from trying to push away parts of ourselves. So it was like, on the one hand, Isaac, it was everything's connected. Everything is connected to everything else, which I had always sensed, but had no language for, no just no matrix for that. So it was about the interconnection of all, which actually even Silva acknowledges and works with, but going deeper into the embracing of all that we make other, right? And so the spiritual work was really very, very internal, personal work. But to this day, I see that that is the key to healing externally. That's the key to peace in the world. It's all about embracing all.
Yeah, what a good foundation for going into the healing arts,
So much so, like even understanding that, even every health challenge tells a love story in my view. Every health challenge is calling us home. And so, I really work as the elder I get, the more I see that it is the storyteller in me who is the center of everything I do.
Mm.
I think it's really is about the spirit work, the emotion, and I don't really separate it except to talk about it, physical healing, spiritual healing, but it's about creating the most, opening story full of the potential of, what brings you the greatest joy. Because again, what I see is, well, I learned from an oak tree that joy is medicine. And this is really essential in the
Mhm.
time we're in.
And by love story, do you mean like a love story to ourselves?
Yeah.
Okay.
Love story, well, to ourself is then to everything. To
Right.
ourself is then to everyone. Because if I make peace with a part of myself that I have previously despised or hidden from or what have you, or judged, even simply didn't like, if I make peace with that in me, then I'm making peace with that in you.
Mm. Yeah.
And so on. Everything ripples, everything ripples,
Yeah.
everything.
Mhm.
So that's, that is a number of kind of ways to describe my sense of my spirituality. It's we're all multidimensional.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that joy piece is also very important, as you were saying, especially now, because
Mm.
it seems so dark right now. And, I know a lot of people they're struggling. A lot of
Yeah.
people are struggling.
Big time. And all of us are going to struggle through some of it. It's just a
Yeah.
question of what we feed.
Mm.
Yeah.
What we feed. And it's very much serves the status quo and the powers that be for us to feed despair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really easy to fall into that. Right.
Yeah.
And yet, well, I am no stranger to grief. I have, had life experiences that have helped me to understand the depth of what grief is. As the again, there's that yin yang thing, the both, everything is a both and, right? When you're in health, when you're in a let me rephrase that. You can't have joy without grief, and you can't have grief without joy. So it's one thing to feel grief over things that are dying and things that are in cruelty, and all of the things, right? The isms and the injustices and the environmental degradation, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. The basic heavy duty lack of respect, right? That is causing things to fall apart.
Mhm.
We need to grieve that, right? When we don't grieve that, then we hit despair. But if we grieve, then we come out the other side and have the joy as well.
Yeah.
Again, this is something you have to experience it to know it,
Mm.
right? But well, this is like a pretty heavy duty thing. I know we're so early into our conversation, but it's here. So I'm just going to say this. I
Mhm.
had an experience, I don't know, maybe it was a couple years ago, where yet one more really grievous thing had happened. A dear, dear beloved friend was just so, so, so ill. And
Mm.
I went to my oak tree. This oak tree is like, I guess, my chief counselor, and this big old oak tree. And I had a really profound vision. And the vision was that, like, joy as a natural state is like this giant container. And then there was like this teardrop that fell into it, like almost like one tear in the ocean. And then this message said that the deepest grief you ever feel is that relative to the container of joy that is
Oh,
reality. And I was just like blown away. So
I love that visual.
yeah, thank you. Me too.
What a
It's
special lesson from the oak.
so powerful, right? It was just so potent. And you know how it is. You know truth when you hear it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not something you can intellectually kind of, write a little treatise on to help everyone understand it,
Mhm.
or even me, right? I could say, well, how could that be when thus and so, right? But it wasn't like that. It was like direct transmission. So I'm actually glad to share it because I think lots of people need that message. So wherever it resonates, receive it. If it
Mhm.
doesn't resonate, put it aside until perhaps one day it will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
So, as far as you mentioned your storytelling, I'm already feeling, bearing witness to your storytelling and reading your books. I see that you're an amazing storyteller. Can you speak a little bit more to how story helps with healing? Because you mentioned that.
Yeah, for sure. So, I've been thinking about, I'm not, let me just say, like, as a clinical herbalist, I'm very good at what I do in that when I look at the result, I see people how they heal. And yet I can't hold a candle to many of my colleagues in their level of understanding of illnesses and this and that, right? Or even specifically the pathways the herbs are taking in the body, why they're doing what they're doing. And so I say, well, what is it that I do? What is it that's working? Right? Because I'm not going to try to be something I'm not. I'm not going to, this is a decision I made quite a while back. I'm not going to study like what I don't really care about, what I'm not passionate about. So what is it? And I realized it's that my gift is to help people find the story that has woven into the situation that they're in, right? Into the present, whatever's going on, and find how just in that encouraging way, it makes some sense, like where they are makes some sense, and then help them to write a more a more healing story that they can then grow into with the help of our exquisite plants.
Mm.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense to you, AC and Isaac?
Yeah, it does make sense. Do you have an example by chance of
Oh
like,
God, yeah, thousands.
okay.
Yes, that's good. Grounded in a real story.
Yeah.
Let me think a moment.
Hmm.
Well, this was a bit of an extreme, but it's the one that came to mind. So I had a young woman come in with multiple sclerosis, and she was incredibly debilitated by it already at that point. She had been in treatment for a long time, and her doctor had now wanted to do something even more drastic and more pharmaceuticals. And she was just like, so I noted that she couldn't really come make it up the stairs
Mm.
where the herbal clinic was at that time. And she couldn't, when I poured her tea, she couldn't pick up her cup.
Mm.
So she was so bad.
Yeah.
And young single mother, no
Oh,
money. I mean, really, really rough situation. And it took time, but one of the things we were able, this was actually, I say we because it was me and my little clinic and residence team at the time. They held a beautiful healing space for her. One of the things that she was able to come to, because to tell someone their story does no good whatsoever.
yeah.
Right? It does. It's like you were a priestess in a past life. That's nice, so what? But if you remember something, that's different, right? So it was
Mm.
to help her find the story of all the ways in which she was working against herself. And she began to see it. She began to see it. And I haven't yet seen any autoimmune presentation where that wasn't a piece of the story.
Mm.
And so the individual things are going to be different. One's in a, a non-supportive relationship. One is doing work that she's hated for years and wishes to leave. And I even had, this is so anyway, she's done beautifully. I just want to give you a simpler example that just came to my mind.
Yeah, sure.
That woman she got her whole life back.
Oh,
She got her
awesome.
whole life back. She's driving. She was able to take her son to the park again. She got back into school. She got a graduate degree. She's working in her field, helping, special ed children. It was just
Love it.
beautiful, right? So beautiful. And remember, this is important too for you who listen, you are listening to us, and for us, it's like she didn't have any money. So I had to keep the herbs so simple.
Mm.
And at times I had to keep them herbs that I could afford to give her.
Yeah.
And we were all in New York City at the point. So we would go into the parks and dig up her burdock.
Nice.
That's illegal, but it was a really long time ago. Actually, one park guy started following us around and I thought he was going to bust me. But it turned out he had been overhearing and he began asking questions for his sister's heart condition. And then he helped us dig her weeds for her.
That's awesome.
I was so excited to meet the plants, right? This was a little ways in, but there's that story too. Oh, well, the plants want to help you, right? The plants love you. The plants have these particular gifts. So connecting people with the story of the plant medicine is a piece of it. So, but here's this other great example. A woman came in, she was having a post-Lyme's flare-up, and one of her legs was huge. Like it was swollen like half the size, double the size,
Right.
half the size, double the size. And, we did remarkably well with ginger poultices on her leg. But here's what she came up with in her story. Her husband wanted deeply to move out of the city. She so didn't want to do that, so wanted to stay in the city. So one of the things that had happened was they moved and she had to learn to drive. It was her driving foot. So one of the manifestations was when her legs swelled like that, she couldn't drive a car.
Oh.
And she's like, I'm like, there are more direct ways. Non-negotiable for you, right? What's non-negotiable, what doesn't work for you, you don't have to harm yourself like this. And honestly, and she, it was one of those, like, again, the truth when you hear it, the eyes get big, the jaw drops towards the ground. And she's like, oh my God. And I am positive that that's why the leg went down to normal so fast. Because it was so fast. So that's the kind of thing I see that I love. And it also, it makes you and me engaged in our own healing.
Yeah.
Right. And then sometimes we don't know the story and we have to simply, what story am I telling myself now? Am I imagining the worst possible outcome? Am I imagining the best possible outcome? Because we do co-create. We're always co-creating with the universe.
Yeah. That, to me, this is sparking ideas in myself about the karmic level. And so I've been studying Vedic astrology very intensely, and we're looking at the karmic level with the birth chart, and we can see these patterns, archetypical patterns. But you're coming at it actually you're coming at to the same place from a different way, through a different way from the actual stories. And those stories are an entry into that karmic level, because it's
absolutely.
Yeah, it's like it's a more subtle level actually, but it's present. It actually causes a lot more in what we think of as the more real area.
Yeah. And there's a quote that I love to share with you, which is, the point of power is in the present. So whatever the karma is, whatever the past was, right, which is another story, of course, right?
Yeah, right.
Reincarnation is a story. I say if your story is like working for you and it's giving you expansive possibilities, by all means, go with that story. And if
Mm.
not, then expand your story. But the point of power is in the present, so that nobody is stuck anywhere. And I did this, and so of course it makes sense that I'm suffering. Well, maybe it does. Maybe you did do that, and maybe it does make sense that you're suffering. But that doesn't mean you have to suffer one instant longer. Right?
Mm.
The point of power is always in the present. The point of possibility is always in the present. Anything is possible in the present. This is just, well, this is what I've seen. This is what I've seen. And the other thing, another way to say what you were talking about with the, where the tie-in comes with the, Vedic astrology understandings, and what I was talking about is, as Carolyn May said, your biography becomes your biology.
Ah, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And if I wanted to change my story, if there's elements of my story that I'm like, this isn't working for me, is that going to be work through like visualization and affirmation and rewriting my story? Do you have ways that you advise?
I mean, depends on like what resonates for you. I do find ritual is an essential component for most people.
Mhm.
And it can be as simple as anything, right? But that's what speaks to the inner being, and we could do the outer being forever. I deserve abundance. I deserve health. It doesn't change anything.
Gotcha.
Right?
You have to talk to that inner being.
You've got to find a way to communicate beyond just the verbal word level with that inner being, who is very childlike in a way.
Mhm.
And I believe, again, because it's what I've seen, is that the body is the most honest part of us. It always tells the truth. So if we follow that, we're going to get where we need to go. But so to answer a little bit more for you there, though, a particular herb might be the one to help you.
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe it's, I know I'm not safe in the world, right? I lived with that story for a really long part of this life, right?
Mhm.
We won't even talk about other ones, but in this life, I don't feel safe in this world because I'm not, right? That's the reality. And a lot of times we don't even know what the story is because it's just what is real to us. We can't even conceive that it's a story. And so then maybe an herb like hawthorn would be really helpful as perhaps you are painting what not being safe feels like and looks like.
Okay. Yeah.
So in terms of growing into the next phase, it would be, okay, like I just worked with a client. She said, oh my God, I've been painting the heartbreak forever. I've never gone that one next step. I said, I want to paint what you could even begin to conceive your heartbreaking open might look like, and she's up for it, right? So it could be, it's like whatever you're like, I might write, you might paint, someone else might go, hang out a lot with a plant or the plants, or get into water or baths, or so it could be anything. And it's usually a combination because these things tend to be, deep seated. I mean, if it's like a sudden thing, well, I keep banging into things this past month, right? Then it's more like, okay, the story is there's not enough time, right? But it's it's like of the moment. But you're asking me about, kind of a more, if it's something that runs deeper. And then that's going to take however long it takes. I mean, that's the thing too, is like to fall in love with yourself, like to devote that time to your healing. And these things that I'm talking about, I love, like it's taken me quite a while to get here. It really has, to drop perfectionism and just enjoy, being uniquely, quirkily myself, and not trying to fit in, because the plants, would you affirm this, that the plants really help you feel you belong?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've never felt like I belong so much until I became in the herb world and an herbalist.
Yeah.
And I thought at first it was the other herbalists, like, oh, the other herbalists are my people. Like I've met my group, going to herb conferences and things like that. But yeah, it's really because of the plants that we all were brought together. And, the plants are really creating that connection and circle even among us. So
Yeah. I mean, I find that opening to the plants then has shifted my relationships with two-leggeds, not to mention, animals and it's soil and insects, so my, right? But
mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, animals, plants, they're easier to open ourselves to utterly, right? But then once we start to do that, then we do it more with one another. And then there's a lot of great medicine in that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think ultimately the greatest thing we suffer from that leads to all the illnesses is a sense of isolation, and loneliness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And lack of purpose, I find, is another one for people where they feel like why am I here?
Yep. 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 And that really does come from a sense of isolation, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Hand in hand.
I never thought I thought I'd be one of those people who found my purpose when I was like now.
Yeah.
I never really expected to actually find my path so long ago. So that was a nice, fabulous surprise.
Yeah. And I think that isolation and the sense of loneliness and the sense of it comes from nihilism too. And that comes from this material reductionist paradigm that we're stuck in the industrial West. And because there's no spirit connection to spirit, we're all isolated, separate individuals cut off from everything else,
which leads to that lack of respect.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, it big time sucks, and it sucks all the life force out of us, right? It sucks the joy, and it's not based in reality.
Yeah, right. Totally.
And so the great thing is, I mean, I say reality is the most magical game in town, right? And the great thing is that when you open that door even a little, because it is aligned more with reality, with the larger reality, people find they can go there much more readily than they ever imagined they would.
Mm-hmm.
I just, which is great.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
So you talked about ritual a little bit too. And I find that sometimes just recognizing the story is very helpful. Sorry, our cats are playing with paper.
They love ritual. When they said, "Let's come over."
Yeah, so sometimes just recognizing the story heals it. But as you were saying, these deeper stories, sometimes you have to working with ritual can be a lot better. And I think that maybe because, the inner being, it communicates more with images, symbols, and ritual. And does this go into what being a green witch is about too, working with plants and ritual, or what is a green witch to you?
Well, a green witch to me is a person who is awakened to the magic of nature and has an especial affinity for the plant people, right? And the green witch is it's like a way of being. And so it can be expressed as an herbalist, as an artist, as a mother, father, it can be expressed by anybody, right? But it's one who's awakened to the magic of the living world and has an affinity for the plants.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Thanks.
Well, she was remarking.
Witch, you're wearing a green witch hat, Isaac.
Yeah, she's a green witch.
Cool.
Green witch, green wizard, green bean, somewhat. But she was remarking when she was reading Healing Magic how you're talking about, without using the word animism, you're talking about animism.
Absolutely.
And it's become a very popular word lately. But
may it become more popular and more more popular. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that the idea of it and the concept of it and the actual practice of it has been kept alive in the industrial West through the magical community and through herbalists. Because when you start realizing that plants are alive and conscious, and actually everything is alive and conscious, then suddenly, oh yeah, there's your white pine.
There's my white pine. Yep. I didn't mean to upstage you by white pine. I heard what you were saying. It was just you were talking about it, and I just decided to pet the pine.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you about that too. You've brought in the energy and
Yeah.
the leaves of the white pine and grandmother cedar.
I did. I got my grandma cedar right here and the white pine right here. And so ritually and herbally, right, we have the energy of, well, there's pine, of course, for the respiratory system. It's in the infusion I'm drinking right now.
Oh, nice.
Ritually, pine is so beautiful to bring peace, bring a sense of peace. And we could dry it and burn it. We could, not while it's in my hair, burn it. We could make a strong tea and bathe in it. We can stand with the pines and breathe with them, right? There's so many ways to interact, right, with the plants. For physical healing, I really like to see people take them internally, no matter what else they're also doing. But usually you do have to take them in, not always, but usually. But yeah, pine is peace. Pine is like, look at the flexibility of the tree and the way the kind of wind moves through pine, and pine lets go easily, right? You see after a storm, branches. So, there's so many metaphors, story, what have you. And of course, there's a famous, indigenous story of the white pine of peace in North America, right? Where 6 different nations came and buried the hatchet literally under the white pine of peace, and that created the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, which I didn't pronounce exactly right, or the Iroquois Confederacy, which was one of the models for the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah.
I did leave out a few little details, like that the grandmothers could oust the chief if the chief was behaving badly. They left out those things because they could not relate to them. They probably couldn't even hear them. Right. The white pine of peace. And I was in New York City for my first 10 years as an herbalist. There's a white pine, 2 white pines of peace planted in Central Park. Yeah. One by Jake Swamp and the other, I don't remember, but it's in the Imagine Garden that, is for John Lennon. So I love pine. And then the cedar is very, very dear to me as a ritual plant, though I do use this plant for physical healing as well. It's not as much for anyone. It's not, you should know a little, you shouldn't be a beginner and be drinking the thuja, the cedar. As a ritual plant, this is one that I have used forever and ever for creating a sense of your body being sacred space. It's a beautiful plant to help with that, what I was talking about earlier about, how do you go from not feeling safe in the world, right? Or safe to be in a body, or safe, whatever it is, safe being a woman or a Muslim or an LGBT, whatever, right? Whatever it is, or in your family, whatever it is. So Grandma Cedar is one that helps you move into divine alignment. And when you're in alignment, right, with the elements, the earth, the sky, you walk in safety. You learn that. Like I know a lot of magic is done around protection. It's around protection. And I think that is a step in a good direction. But I don't think that's the place we end up, because that still is breeding that separation. But it's a necessary step in the right direction of being in your center so completely that you walk, right, in beauty, you walk in truth, you walk in that magic. To me, magic and spirit are synonymous.
I'm glad that you called in those 2 plants to be with us for this interview.
Thank you. So I often like to dry the cedar, and Kiwe Denokwe, one of my teachers, said we always call her grandmother. So I always call her grandmother. So grandmother, I do like to dry and burn. And I also really love to make oil, infused oil, by simply gathering the leaves, doing an offering, gathering the leaves, tearing them up and covering them with, I use olive oil. I love olive trees so much. And covering them and letting them steep for months. Oh, the oil is so, so, so beautiful.
So you're
And
not drying it first?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
And it comes out gorgeous when it's done fresh.
Mm.
Could probably make a beautiful oil with the dried as well, but it hasn't been my practice.
Okay, yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah, it seems like it doesn't have too much water content.
Yeah.
And it's not going to rot, but the fresh essential volatile oils are going to still be more present in the fresh.
Yeah.
And that's white cedar too. That's the Arbor Vitae.
Oh, I don't know. I get corrected about my identification of cedar, so I'm hesitant to say I'm a Sag. I think Sages, this is the most gross generalization I will have said today. I think Sages, I was thinking about this yesterday, maybe aren't the best botanists. They're not the most natural botanists because we're big picture people.
Right.
Right. But
botanist is all about the loop.
Yeah. And I love that too. I totally love that. But the thing with cedar, Isaac, and is like even all the botanists disagree. And I apologize to any of you fabulous Sagittarian botanists out there. There's exceptions.
Okay. One or two of you out there.
There you go. There you go. The what was I saying? I don't remember. Something about the
cedar.
The
cedar.
Yeah, about grandma cedar. Yeah. So even the botanists all, thank you. Even the botanists all disagree about is it cypress family? Is it juniper family? Is this a true cedar? Is this a false cedar? All I know is this one that I call northern white cedar is if you rub the leaves, they kind of smell like pineapple.
Oh, cool.
That's what I know. So in some of the books you'll see pineapple cedar is one of the nicknames.
Okay.
That makes sense.
That's the kind that we have. Well, we have eastern white cedar where we are. There's the red cedar doesn't grow around here because we have apples, and the apples.
They say that's a juniper. They say that's a juniper.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It always confused me.
But yeah, that's what great. But they're both great plants, and they're all the cedars are wonderful.
And think about all the herbalists in all the places who just go out the door and know which herb to pick for the cough and which herb to pick for the stomach ache, and have no Latin, no botany, botanical, right?
Totally.
So those are not the essential.
Yeah.
Essential skills. I love to show off my botanical Latin, but we don't need that to be. And you don't need that to be good herbalist if you're an aspiring herbalist listening to Plant Cunning Podcast.
Yeah.
I love your name of your podcast, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
That's so fun. It's a really fun name.
Thanks. Yeah, we don't need the Latin, but I remember when me and Isaac were courting each other, we were just at the beginning of our courtship. He dropped some Latin names of plants, and I was like, ooh, who's this guy? Like, I like that.
So another herbal green witch would find that sexy. You understand this, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you found each other.
Me too.
Also me, yes.
Thank you.
I bet.
So you've written several books. Healing Magic is one of the classics.
That was the first.
The first one.
And The Gift of Healing Herbs. And then you've recently put out a pocket book of wisdom, of Green Witch Wisdom.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a really fun book. I have not read it yet, but I'm excited about laying my eyes on it at some point soon. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about those books, especially the newest book and why you wrote it?
Sure. Yeah. So the Green Witch's Pocket Book of Wisdom is subtitled Big Little Life Tips. And I started it, I think it was around 2018, because I have been so fortunate to have had such great teachers, and to have come to this place that I never imagined I would, of falling in love with being alive in a human body. I just didn't know that was ever going to happen. I didn't even have an aspiration for that to happen. I was always like, this is one of my least favorite lives. Like, I'm safe and good and all, but people are so cruel and everything's falling apart and, blah, 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 blah. And then lo and behold, this gradually came to be. So I thought people are really despairing, sick, fearful, giving up. They need maps. And, I tend to write deep, that's just how I am. I was like, they need little, like, not sound bites, but, little chunks of tips of wisdom, how to navigate. So I wrote that to kind of bring in the best of the kind of transcendent teachings and the immanent teachings, the earth, the life forces in everything, the life forces beyond, beyond, beyond. So, and I wanted, the pocketbook was from the beginning, I wanted something, people could just carry around with them wherever they go. Also, because I love books like that.
Yeah, totally.
By my bedside, and at night read something to dream on, and in the morning open it. So I learned there was a word for that practice called bibliomancy.
Yes.
Another simple ritual. Bibliomancy is asking for a message, right? And it could be just, what message do I need to hear right now? That's one of my favorites. Or it could be a message about, should I go to, Spain next summer, or, whatever it might be. Should I get together with this guy who knows Latin names of plants? What's your comment, universe? Right?
Yeah.
So I love to just do bibliomancy and ask for a message. So I was thinking it would be a lot of fun just to ask for a message for us right now, for you who are listening, and just see what I open to. Okay.
Please.
And see what resonates. Okay. Okay, I opened to, I'll show you that. Oh, and it's beautifully illustrated by a local artist friend. We just actually had our book lunch party as we're talking. We just had the book lunch party a week ago today, or a week. Yeah.
Oh, fun.
So what I opened to was, and so each page is like a bit of wisdom and then a little explanation under it. I wasn't going to have any of the explanation part, but the people who read it said, you have to explain what you mean. So I did. Okay, so sometimes you have to go backward before you can move forward. Sometimes you have to go backward before you can move forward. And say it one more time. Sometimes you have to go backward before you can move forward. When you're unable to move beyond something that went wrong because you believe it was your fault, open a portal to the past and redo the scenario in a meditation. Knowing what you know now, imagine yourself making another choice. Envision and feel it fully, not as an act of denial, but as an act of creation. This exercise invites emotional healing in the present and sets a new template for the future. So it's something that I have done sometimes. This really comes from the original work I did with my teachers, June and Jim. By the way, I do have there a link on my resources page on my website. I have a link to a site that some of their students made to keep their work alive past their lifetime, because they're both ancestors now. So I do have that link. I think it's called the Let Go and Live Institute.
Right.
So people, if you're intrigued by anything I'm saying about that, you can look into it. So this work really comes from work I did with them, which was a lot of active imaging work, right? But also they had some incredible exercises of how you could bring healing between people by doing things on the inside. And I have watched and seen it change external relations. But this particular one I have found extra useful with clients, right? Clients who were stuck blaming themselves for something so bad they couldn't move to that next step in the healing. And I had one client who I'm thinking of who just wouldn't smile. And she had
Really?
a beautiful smile, and she just wouldn't smile. And unraveling the story took really a lot, but we got there. And it seemed for her to come into this one experience where she hadn't listened to her intuition and she had been harmed. And she was still so mad at herself.
I see.
So we went back into the moment, had her have the intuition and step back instead of going forward and just, head on with her day. And again, it's not to deny, it's not to repress anything, but it's like
Heal.
you can't change what was, but you can definitely set new templates for the
Right.
future. Whereas if you're over and over again, even quietly, not consciously, reliving what you wish you hadn't done, that's the same template being created for the future. Right. So
Absolutely.
I was very surprised that this was what came up. I'm just going to say that, just to be honest. I thought it'd be something planty or something, maybe not as complex,
Yeah.
but maybe this speaks to your audience. Maybe you have complex understanding of things. So
I think
sometimes you
so.
have to go backward before you can move forward to bring
Mhm.
emotional healing in the present and a new template for the future.
Mhm.
So there we go.
It's tango.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
tango. And I just said, can I have one more? And so I did. And it was all creation. It just ties right in. All creation begins in the imagination.
Mm.
We are all dreaming this world into being, consciously and unconsciously. Let's imagine the most beautiful possible present and work together to make it so. And here's the wonderful illustration that goes with that one.
Oh, nice. That's gorgeous.
Isn't it? Yeah, Gail Stoughton is the illustrator. She did a beautiful job.
I love that you wrote this book of these sort of bite-sized wisdoms that you can use for divination and bibliomancy and just inspiration. I think that's such a great idea.
They're almost like aphorisms, maybe a little bit longer than an aphorism.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, because you've had so many experiences as, an herbalist and a spiritual person. Like, I feel like that's just such a gift that you've given us, and is like these little bite-sized nuggets of wisdom.
Thank you. I think I do. I think we need maps. I think we need maps of how to negotiate this territory that we're in that's so confusing, and things that will help us own our own sovereignty, our own inner knowing. Like that's so important right now. I mean, it's always important, but right now everything's ultra meaningful, right? Because every choice we make is leading to how things are going to go.
It feels like a lot of responsibility.
Well, that's true. I think it is, and I love the teasing a part of that word means the ability to respond.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Expand our sense of possible responses is liberating.
Yeah.
It really is liberating, right? Because somebody says something that goes right to like the thing you hate the most, or you're most grumpy about, right? And you immediately, you or I might, back at them, right? And so we get that wonderful dance of, mutual judgment and anger and no connection, right? But if we have a different possibility of a way to respond, that's how things shift.
Yeah.
That's how things shift. And I know easier said than done. So all of these things are practices. Everything is a practice. I'm not writing these wisdoms from any pedestal. Like, let me make that clear, right? These are the things I practice. I have practiced and I'll always practice. And just like the same with the herbs and the herbal recipes and things, it's not like, here's one of my favorite lines is that I like to say is there's no there. There's no there to get there. If anything, I'd like to hear people say, I'm getting here. I'm getting here.
Yeah.
Right. And the plants help us with that because the plants are completely present. When they're lying down, they're not saying, oh, I wish I was seeding right now or fruiting. They're where they are. They're where they are and they help us, right? Don't they? They're such beautiful teachers of being who you are.
Yeah, I found that the aphorisms or the readings that you read were very. I can see how they can be very important right now, especially and even for myself, and getting trapped in previous reaction patterns.
Yeah,
limits your ability to respond.
Yeah,
and
we've all been there.
Yeah. So do you have any plants that come to mind that are helpful for changing reaction patterns.
Yeah. Rose comes to mind right away, right? Because rose, well, and that whole family is amazing, right? The rose family, but rose kind of is one of those that I'm going to say a number of things, right? Not just one thing. So rose, I'm talking now drinking rose as a tea primarily, although tinctures are great as well. Rose helps us to see through the eyes of the heart.
Yeah.
Right? Rose helps physically to cool down the liver, right? Which is so connected to our reactivity, our like hot reactivity, as opposed to, this is a wonderful line from Caroline Casey, visionary astrologer. Let's have cool responses instead of hot, reactivity. So rose cools the liver, opens the heart, and has those glorious thorns. Right. And so it's like, how do you, and I think this is one of our great tasks right now, is to be able to say no with an open heart.
Yeah.
Right. And my favorite plant for that is probably hawthorn.
Yeah. That's what was coming to my mind too. Another rose family, but yeah, those thorns.
And thorns, those super alluring, sexy smelling flowers. Right. So I always say, like, hawthorn is like, come hither, stay away.
Yeah, not too close.
Right? Come hither if I invite you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And so to say no with an open heart can be like, you think about a lot of people get sick because they're not taking care of themselves in the obvious ways, but also because they're not taking care of themselves in the way of, that's too much for me. I can't say yes to that. You know what I mean? They just do it anyway. I should, I'm supposed to, I have to. And so to say no with an open heart has that kind of immediate effect of, and then what are you saying? The open heart part is, what are you saying yes to? Right. And then if I think about it in the more socio-political way, right, a lot of us who are progressive and active are like, yeah, we're really up there in what we're saying no to, but can forget like that we have to be painting the picture of what are we saying yes to.
Yeah.
And what are we creating? Right. And so again, from macro to the micro, the yes and no, the hawthorn and rose are beautiful. I tell a story in the Gift of Healing Herbs. I'm just going to hold it up there.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, Plant Medicines and Home Remedies for a Vibrantly Healthy Life. Its recipes are very user-friendly in that they're mostly very common, accessible herbs, and they're mostly 3 or less herbs per recipe. Because one of the other things I've seen is that the more complicated the health condition, the simpler I go.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen that it works. And also because we have to make things doable. If you don't make it doable for yourself or your client, you're not going to do it. I mean, that's just a big part of it. But now I took myself afield of what I was saying, which was, just know a story that I tell in there about Rose, and a wonderful apprentice who I loved was really struggling because she's a writer and her husband wanted her to get a paying gig. And she was also taking care of the children. And they were just, they needed money, right? So it was all the realities clashing. What do we do? What should we do? I said, why don't you sit down together with a pot of rose tea and just don't even have an agenda, but just share rose tea and just love one another. So they did that. And they woke up in the morning, and she said, I could cry just telling you the story. He came down to the breakfast table and he said, I get it. Writing is breathing for you. Writing is breathing. You have to do it. And since then she's brought money in. I'll just leave it at that. She's written, she's taught writing, but how about that? Rose.
So beautiful.
So beautiful. And again, we make things so complicated. Hi, beautiful. And I saw the other beauty who was, oh my God. We saw, we make things so complicated. And I was talking about this in a class on Sunday, like Therapy can be great and life-saving. Sometimes one of the challenges I have with it is it can keep us going over and over and over the same problem, the same
Yeah.
story, the same wound. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't matter where it came from or who said what. It matters, where do you want to go?
Yeah. Rewriting the story. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't always need to know everything.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's one of the great ways that magic or ritual work is can work even better than therapy sometimes, but hand in hand too. Like when you want to imagine and intend for a new future
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, or a new present. Yeah, I'm
or
gonna
a new
light.
present. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm gonna
right.
light a little bit. So this is a beautiful, simple ritual. Somebody's lighting a candle. Maybe somebody's never grieved a miscarried, um, you know, being or something like that. They
Mhm.
can't finish. It's a
Mm.
simple thing, lighting a candle, connecting, saying, I'm sorry, or maybe, come back if there's a better time. It was just, again, things just don't have to be so elaborate. You don't have to study like to do a simple
Yeah.
ritual. All right.
Yeah.
So I love the ritual of burning herbs.
Mhm.
This happens to be a smudge stick that is from a species of Artemesia that grows in Portugal, where I had the
Okay.
good fortune to be in October.
Nice.
Yeah, and Artemisia is such an incredible herb for opening our what I call our first eye, right? Opening our first eye and helping us to, I call it the intoxicant that helps us remember.
I feel like I can smell it.
You smell it from there, right? It's
Yeah.
similar to ours, not exactly the same. But I'm so glad you can. Here, I'll smudge you both.
Thank you.
And you too, who are listening, whenever you're listening, here you go. Beautiful medicine. Artemisia untames us. Artemisia untames us. This is a plant that says, free your wild, feral self.
Love that.
Fun. Go run naked in the woods, or your version of wild and free. I like
Yeah.
that one. And Artemisia is an incredible digestive bitter used internally, not smoking it like this, right? But an incredible digestive bitter. And you think about it, some of the things that keep us small are because we can't digest like what's happened. We can't digest, so again, I always look for the mirror of the spirit and the material
Mhm.
realities.
Yeah.
They'll always be there if that spiritual emotional medicine is like real, it's valid. It's
Mm.
not just like a concept of, you know what I mean, like connected to nothing, right? So that's a great tip that I have to share with you is just look when you're working with something ritually, spiritually, magically, you will often find, no, I'll say it, you'll always find that there is a mirror in material reality. So, for example, spiritually, I just said this is an herb that helps you remember, right?
Mm.
I think it helps you help us remember dreams that we may have like shelved that maybe we want to take off the shelf. Or maybe we want to say, yeah, that was a beautiful dream. I'm just not as into that one anymore. Right. But it helps us remember what were we dreaming of when we were younger, perhaps more authentic, perhaps less filled with the stories of all the things we can't do, we won't be allowed to do, or they're not practical, or we're not talented enough or beautiful enough, or female or male enough, or whatever, right? So then if we look physically, this is a plant that nourishes the brain and central nervous system. So we drink this tea, it literally helps memory, and it helps prevent the degeneration of memory. So it's
Oh.
one that I work with for people who have Alzheimer's in the family or dementia in the family, prevent
No.
it. So there's always these mirrors. I mean, this is a plant that physically is good for every single system in the body: nervous system, musculoskeletal system, digestive system, sexual reproductive system. I mean, it's
Oh.
remarkable. And it's cursed as a weed,
Right.
right? So there's our common, abundant, generous plant, earth, right? Going, here, let me give you, maybe, that's one of the great things about our like kind of wilder medicine approach, is that it has to be accessible. Everybody has a right to have medicine.
Yes. Is that the cover plant on the Gift of Healing Herbs, I notice?
No, that is one of my other all-time
What
favorites.
is it?
Motherwort.
Motherwort. I see now.
A lot of people do mix up motherwort and mugwort, and this one is rosemary.
Lovely.
I love rosemary too, but motherwort, I was like, how did I ever live without motherwort?
I know, right?
Such a great calming anti-anxiety plant, right?
It is. Yeah, this year we had a few motherworts growing throughout our farm and our property, and this year I took over an entire row of the greenhouse, and it just was like in a row. And so I was like, "There's my motherwort row. That's wonderful!" And I made a big batch of Heart Helper tincture with motherwort, hawthorn, and rose glycerin.
Ooh, beautiful. That's
So
beautiful. I love that. I love that. You know what might be fun? I think I'm imagining we're getting close to.
Yeah, we're about done here. Yeah.
How about, can I share maybe a poem from this book?
Please, that'd be great.
Okay. Do you want motherwort?
It's so fun, Robin Rose. Thank you for
You two are
talking
awesome.
with us. Thanks.
What plant would you like? Call out a plant. See if I have it.
A poem for a plant, you're saying?
Yeah, it could be one we talked about or a different one.
Do you have one for grandmother Cedar?
I don't. Sorry.
Or hawthorn or rose?
I have ones for all of those. So let's see who I find first. I mean, a wiser woman than me would actually just turn to the index, right, and look it up. But
we'll
I seem
find
to be leafing through the 500-page book to see which of them shows up first. I do have a kind of a sly, cunning Hawthorne poem that I have memorized. Let's see.
Oh, yeah, cool.
It's for her autumn being. Grandmother Hawthorne sounds like a snake when wind moves through her leaves, making them shake. They rustle and hiss as they touch one another. Sounds like a snake may be Grandma's lover.
Ooh, yeah. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, that one I had. Oh, how about motherwort? Because that's who I found first of all the ones we talked about.
Sounds great.
Oh, motherwort, dearest motherwort, you are more precious than gold. We call you the lion-hearted one. It's time your story was told. You are complex, bitter to our taste, yet sweet of spirit and heart. When anyone asks you for comfort, you're willing to do your part. I've seen you support stressed new mothers. Of course, you calm fathers too. Even kids benefit from your gifts. You help us all shine like new. You bring peace and soothe anxiety, afflicting heart, mind, or womb, and fill us with determination so we won't give in to gloom. It's said you bring immortality, and whether or not that's true, you help me feel so much happier. I will always live with you.
Oh, yes. That's great.
So yeah, I have, people learn differently. So there's like body, mind, heart, spirit, little cheat sheets at the beginning of the plant chapters, little summary, then there's the by the body system, then there's poems and a few illustrations for like maybe 9 of the main plants in here.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, thanks for letting me read a poem.
Thank you for sharing.
You told me you wanted to work with healing magic, and we've really gone from all the other books. I wonder if I should do a bibliomancy.
Oh, yeah, let's do it, because that's the one that I go back to again and again. So
well, why don't I let you choose something from there that you wanted to hear anything more about?
Well, I like the idea of the bibliomancy too.
Do you want to do it?
Of you flipping through, or should I flip through?
Why don't you flip through?
Okay. So,
What?
It was the stories of 3 spells that did not seem to work. So binding spells and then the tricky business spells.
Well, it's funny.
That brings up spells. We didn't even talk about spells at all.
I opened to spells as well.
Did you really? So that must have been why we have to.
I guess we do.
Go into spells.
Yeah, I'm going to read you the closing of the spell chapter.
Perfect.
Starting point. I'm going to start at the end.
Okay.
Beyond separation. Ultimately, anything that you invoke in a spell, from a new home to world peace, is a symbol. At the deepest level, whatever you are calling forth, whatever feeling you are seeking, it is already part of you. Everything is already part of you. But you are here as a human to have a human experience. You have to put things and people in situations that seem to create your feelings outside yourself in order to know yourself. And on I go on. But spell work can and so I'm cutting now to the very end. Spell work can help you magnetize and attract things and people you want and need in your life. Group spell work that is done for the benefit of all, group spell work that is done in community is an excellent tool for learning to work together for the benefit of all. Most importantly, though, spell work can help you to know your own mind and find and free your own heart. You grow and evolve, learning from the results of your magical workings. Anytime you do a spell in a sacred way, you are reclaiming your power, owning your gifts and responsibilities, and recovering your natural healing magic. Yeah. So asking for what you basically, a spell is a way of spelling out to the universe what you want. It's a way of kind of creating a little theater or drama around your prayer or your wish, right? Or your intention. Probably the most important, well, they're all important. Another important piece is to create a container, right? It's like magic is the same as ritual, is the same as cooking. You cook your, 7-bean soup without a pot.
Yeah.
You gotta have the pot, because if you throw the beans and the water into nothing, you're just gonna have a mess. You're not gonna have soup.
Sure. Yeah.
And so you need to create the container to do spell or ritual work. And all spells are ritual, but not all rituals are spells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then lastly, I am saying, is release your attachment to the end result. Do your spell and then give it over. I like to say it then, or something better.
Yeah.
Something better, or something better.
I like that.
Open that container. If you've created something, give it back to one of the elements.
Oh.
Or put it in flowing water, something natural, bury it in the earth. And timing is everything. So maybe it's a spell that you want to, let's say you're going for a home. That's probably the spell work that people tell me the most frequently they've used the book for to great success. Even including on Sunday, someone said it's I guess I'm good at house spells. So let's say you've made a little symbol of what you want, and you've made a little nest. You decide if you want to have it up for 3 days, or you want to have it out you just want to create it and immediately give it back to one of the elements, or you want to have it for a moon cycle, or you want to have it till you find your new place, right? So these are individual choices. I say everyone please, learn your relationship to the elements. That's the most important container to learn how to create. Yeah. And there's one other piece that I need to find. Give me a moment. Yes, that or something better. Well, whatever it is, it'll keep. But the universe has your back. The universe has your back.
Yeah.
Ask for what you want, or these days, though I am definitely a green witch, I don't really do spells so much anymore. I'm more about making friends with what is. But I do ask. For what I want. That's for sure. And,
That's for sure.
or something better, right?
Yeah.
That's part of trust. But yeah, life is, there's some good quote in there I like that I'm trying to remember about. Yeah, it's like life isn't about practicing magic, but practicing magic is about making your life more magical.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. I'm glad that we brought up spells. Me and Isaac were like, should we talk about spells? And we were like, well, let's stick with herb stuff. So
That all goes together, though, right? That all goes together because the spells will always have herbs
yeah.
helping in them. And I did just write a kids book, and that's going to come out in
Oh,
June. And it has like little rituals and spells for kids too, and they all have herbs. They all feature an herb.
yeah, that's really exciting. I'm gonna have to get that for my nieces and nephews.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks. Yeah, it's
Mm.
beautiful. It's really a beautiful, beautifully illustrated book. I'm very excited about that one.
One story in here that really stood out was the story where you were just basically following your intuition. You wanted to go to bed, but then you're like, I'm being called to the front door. Do you know where I'm going with this? Like,
Yeah, it's when you said, I tried to guess when you said one story that called me, and I said, I wonder if it's the epilogue. And yes, that's
yeah, it's the epilogue. Yeah. You want to tell that story real quick, or do you want me to?
yeah, you go for it.
Okay, so basically you went to the front door and you're like, I want to go to bed. Why am I here? And you were called to the witch hazel plant that was shaped as a Y that you had as a protective plant over your front door, and called to the altar on a table with like a beautiful doily with some items, sacred items that you had placed there. And eventually your intuition led you to just pick up this piece, a button, metal button with like a Gaia image of Mother Earth, and you thought of the woman that gave it to you. And then you thought, this wants to go on the witch hazel. You're just like looking back and forth between this and the witch hazel. And you took a moment to take a ribbon and beautifully tie it to the witch hazel. And you're like, well, I kind of liked it better on the doily, but I'm going to leave it. And that night, the woman was coming home from a late night shift as a bartender server at a restaurant and was get dropped off by a taxi, and then was attacked by a man in the neighborhood who the police had believed was like a previous rapist who had been attacking other women in the neighborhood. And she fought and yelled and got away, thank goodness, and got into her house or into the apartment building safely. And then based on your conversations the next day, like it was a very aligned experience. You did that about an hour before she was attacked. And the link of your connection and love for each other and like your intuition led you to do that. And it just like speaks volumes to me about like the power of our connection and of following our gut and our intuition, and how these subtle things that we don't think really can make a difference, like can actually matter and can actually reverberate out. And so that's how spells work. That's how, following these like subtle cues work. And I just, that will stick with me for sure. And it'll make me, as someone developing my own intuition, like pay attention more,
Yeah, you told that beautifully.
Oh, thank you. It stuck with me, I guess.
Because I'm like, I wrote that quite a while ago. I see you tell it. Got everything. And it was like, got up. I think I was going to bed. I was a very late night girl in those days. And I was going to bed at like 3 a.m. And she got to work at like 4. And that's when I get like, and the police said she was the only woman they knew who had escaped without being raped.
Wow.
By this serial rapist. And horrible, right? But yeah, that Gaia button. On the witch hazel, on
the protective witch hazel,
right. And so I guess what I walk away from that too is like, listen, even if you don't understand why.
Yeah, exactly.
Trust it anyway, and that can be so challenging for us to do.
Yeah.
And I recently did that. Listened to a weird intuition.
Really?
Having dinner with friends, and I kept getting this intuition to go talk to this woman at the table next to us. And I'm like, I'm only half listening to my friends, and that's not like me. Right?
Yeah.
And we don't get together that often. So I'm like really into them.
Yeah.
And I finally, I was like, could you excuse me a minute? And I go over here, and I'm going to make this a short story because I know it's just been a long conversation. But I went over to her and I was like, I don't usually do this, but here's my name is la da da, what's yours? Hi. And I said, I just really get this feeling I'm supposed to give you my name and tell you about like my work, or you go look it up if you want. And that's that. Anyway, the end of the story is that she said, she came over after she said, may I, talk to you for a minute? I said, yeah. And I saw she was crying. And she said, it's only been a couple of days since my oncologist told me that I am the first person they ever saw completely cleared of cervical cancer, even though I refused all the conventional treatment. And I had been about to do it. I did ask her permission to share this story, by the way. She said I was going to do the surgery and stuff, but then I had such a sense it's not the right path for me. It's not the right path. I said, what did you do? She said, I herbs and food.
Yeah.
For a year. And the doctor was just completely blown away. She says, I've never seen this.
Wow.
And she's like, thank you for, for seeing me. Thank you for coming over. And I definitely want to know about what you do. And you anyway, like, oh my God.
That's amazing.
Right? It's amazing. And so, yeah, we do. We want to listen even when it doesn't make sense, or even if it's something way less, like take that road, not that road. And later you learn there was a breakdown on that road and it saved you an hour to get where, intuition is life. It can be very little, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll go on a second date with him or her, whatever. It could be a little thing. It feels right. Or it could be life-saving.
Totally.
Be life-saving. And I think that's another thing with our sovereignty that we need to own, to move through these times with more and more grace and joy. But we also need our intuition, which goes beyond instinct. But that could be a whole other podcast.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And learning to trust our intuition, I think, is one of the most important things, one of the most important skills. And that's something I'm definitely still working on.
Asking for help is a vital life skill. Asking for help is a vital life skill. Learning to ask for help and stop affirming that asking for help is a vital life skill.
Yes.
And developing and listening to your intuition is a vital life skill. Yeah.
It is.
Sure.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation.
I love talking with you.
Yeah. Where can people find you if they don't know where to find you already?
Yeah, so I have two websites, robinrosebennett.com and robinrosebennettbooks.com. And the best thing to do is to sign up for my newsletter if you want to stay in touch with me and hear about things like my upcoming online course through the Shift Network and travels, or just, for any reason, if you want to stay posted. And I don't just do my newsletter as like, this class, that class. It's also recipes and rituals and content that I hope is valuable to you.
Amazing. And
Great.
You're up on Instagram too?
Absolutely, on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. I don't do Twitter. I leave that for the birds, but yeah.
Me too.
Me too. Good. Yeah, we got enough soundbite world as it is, but
well, thank you again, and cheers.
Yeah, thanks, Robin Rose. Enjoy the rest of the day.
So much, and I look forward to connecting with you two again and hearing more about what you're doing. And thank you to everybody who joins us, and may you be blessed to feel your kinship with the plants and get to know them better and let them get to know you better.
Beautiful.